First News with Keeler in the morning on WIBX and WIBX950.com.
This podcast is sponsored by Cloud Optimizer.
As a business owner or IT manager, are your cloud investment costs going up and you don't know why? It's time for Cloud Optimizer. As you migrate your business to the cloud, what you're spending and why you're spending it can get a little hazy. But Cloud Optimizer clears up the mystery and puts the cloud to work for you. Cloud Optimizer starts by analyzing usage patterns, right-sizing resources, leveraging discounts you may not be aware of, implementing automation, and much more. And by reducing unnecessary expenses and maximizing performance, Cloud Optimizer guarantees you a savings of 5 times what you spend for their service. As you utilize cloud-based services more and more, you don't have to lose sight or control of your spend. You can stay agile, streamline your costs, and optimize your performance, plus save significant money with Cloud Optimizer.
Make the cloud work for you with Cloud Optimizer. Get a free assessment and find out how much you can save by going to cloudoptimizer.com. Go to cloudoptimizer.com for your free assessment. That's cloudoptimizer.com.
Sergeant Dave Olney is with the New York State Police. And Dave, good morning. Thanks for coming on.
Good morning, guys. It's always great to talk to you guys. I do want to point out that I downloaded this handy-dandy WIBX 950 app. And so I'm out of town. It's awesome being able to listen to you guys out of town.
Thank you. And you know the beautiful part of it, this is what my wife tells me, is it's easy to shut off. Like when you get sick of us,
pause.
We're gone. Yeah. You can rewind and do it again. It's incredible. That app is available in the Play Store, Google Play, or in the App Store.
And I want to thank everybody. I think we did hit our goal. I think we did.
By the way, I'm sorry. Dave, you mentioned this, and I don't want to take any more time. I forgot my phone today because I do stupid things like that. If you open up the WIBX 950 app on your phone, there's a bar on the top, and it'll say things like news, weather, contests. Scroll over. Because there is now a Keeler in the Morning podcast featuring episodes from
That's
our
awesome.
live show here, interview segments and best of segments and all that. We are building. It is building. It will continue to grow, but there's probably about 30 episodes up there.
Nice.
Check that out on the free WIBX 950 app.
All right.
Thank you, Dave.
Sergeant Olney, good morning, and thank you for downloading the app. And I led in with the Cheech and Chong song called "Weed Are the World." And Weed Are New York is really what the deal is. So what kind of, we had someone calling yesterday and say, all right, let me get this straight. So we're worried that that you can't tell if somebody smoked marijuana when they have no bad reaction to it. Isn't that a good thing? How do you react to that?
Well, I could probably talk to you for a good hour or so about this. The basics are impairment is impairment. Just like you can drink a certain amount of alcohol and you can be fine, you're not going to be impaired. You can operate a vehicle, you can function. You can take certain amounts of medication, you can take certain amounts of illicit drugs and not be impaired. That said, if you're impaired, you're impaired. So with alcohol, and a lot of your callers, and even Nagel was right yesterday when he said there's no like roadside breath test for us to give somebody with marijuana. But we're still going to give the same test that we do for alcohol, the field sobriety test. And the bottom line is if you are impaired, you are impaired, and then we're going to proceed from there. A lot of people that we test for alcohol on the side of the road, we take them out of the car, we run them through the standardized field sobriety test, we give them the pre-arrest breath screening test or the handheld breath test, and they're fine, and we dust them off and send them on their way because they completed all the field sobriety tests satisfactorily, and we determine they're not impaired. And the same thing goes for drugs.
So if you're not impaired, it's possible you could have smoked at some point during a period, but you are not impaired. There is nothing that would make a police officer say, all right, you've passed the test. Everything that you've done. There's no evidence here that you smoked marijuana. That would be the conclusion, right?
Yeah, and you have to look at it just like alcohol. You can drink a half a beer or whatever and swig a half a beer and then run out to run an errand. We pull you over. We smell the odor of alcoholic beverage on your breath. We get you out and test you. We determine you're not impaired. We send you on your way.
Yeah.
And it's really no different with drugs. So,
that's what I was thinking too.
There's about 350 drug recognition experts in New York State, which is not a lot. it's a very small number compared to the number of police officers in New York State.
Which is why Dave will be busy the next few months.
Well, we're going to have to learn and then train.
Yeah,
that seems to be what we're going to be doing in New York State.
And it's not like we're scrambling to catch up right now.
Yeah.
I've been a DRE since 1997, and this program started in the 70s in Los Angeles. And it's a national and an international program now that's, when you complete this training, you are an expert. It's one of the few things in law enforcement that you can be considered an expert in. It's very intensive training. It's been compared to drinking water from a fire hose. It's 2 weeks of classroom. It's probably the hardest classroom training a police officer can take. And then it's time in either a jail in Arizona, a drug facility in Florida, and we go and we actually put hands on and do testing on in controlled environments on drug-impaired individuals so we can see firsthand what those drugs do to people.
It is interesting that while you might not, like you say, a seasoned, and I think Nagel said this yesterday, a seasoned marijuana smoker or a seasoned cannabis consumer will act much differently than someone who uses it randomly or infrequently. Go ahead.
And if you think about that, that's no different than alcohol.
And I was just going to say that.
Who wakes up at a 0.15, and they function a lot differently than somebody who rarely drinks.
So, and I was going to bring up and I hate to go back to my wife again today, but like she can walk in a room. Apparently, I don't know, you trained her, somebody trained her, but she can walk in a room and say, "You've had too much to drink." I don't know how, and I'm like, "No, I haven't. I don't know what you're talking about." Nope, you've had more than two. And I'm assuming there's a look, and you don't know it. You don't see it.
Well, that's a great point. And when we teach police officers about just field sobriety testing, your layperson can tell from across a room when somebody's a 0.20. There's just things that jump out about them, and you don't even have to get close to them. It's the people like Nagel was talking about that are on the borderline in that gray area, whether or not they are impaired, whether or not they're used to using it, and those are the ones that we're trying to teach every police officer how to recognize. Well, we're rolling out this program. It's not rolling out. It's been around since 2007. It's called ARIDE, Advanced Roadside Impaired Driving Enforcement. I'm actually teaching today and tomorrow downstate. I'm teaching a bunch of experienced police officers, and it's a bridge between the standardized field sobriety testing that we give every police officer in the academy and the drug recognition expert training, which very few people get. Yeah. And it's that bridge so when they're in the street, they recognize impairment by something other than alcohol. So it's to open their eyes and to get them to the point where they're seeing impairment. Because like I said, we all know the signs of impairment by alcohol. You certainly have the odor, you have the speech, you have the motor coordination, you have the eyes, all that stuff. But if you come across somebody who's using Percocet, or you come across somebody who's using antidepressants, they don't act and look like alcohol, so we have to train our people to understand those. And marijuana is no different than any other impairing drug. So
the reality is, it is because it's going to be hard. It will be hard to prove. It's like, okay, we suspect you were borderline, and we suspect you'd been smoking marijuana and you were under the influence. Well, now you got to prove that, so you do a test, but it's going to show only basically sometime in the last 30 days you had consumed. I
want to poke a hole in that for you. Okay, right now. That is true if we're testing urine or hair.
Okay,
because the metabolites stay in your body, and it can be up to 30 days. So if I was the defendant, I would tell my lawyer, hey, tell the court that I smoke every single day of my life except the day I got arrested. I didn't smoke.
Okay,
and then you have a defense because you explain why it's in your system. And if it's legal, it's legal. Our way around that is if we test somebody, we're going to take a blood test. If it is in your blood, it is impairing you. If it's in your blood, it's in your organs, your muscles, your brain, and if it's in your blood, it's psychoactive at that time. So it doesn't stay in your blood for 30 days. It actually metabolizes fairly quickly out of your blood. So if we can show that it's in your blood, and we also show that you perform poorly on field sobriety tests, there's a direct correlation to it being in your blood and being the substance that's impairing you.
Let me ask you this. Because there are some attorneys out there that will say, don't ever take the test. Don't take a breathalyzer test. Refuse the test. Well, you're automatically going to, at that point, you're automatically charged, right?
You're going to be you're basically going to be not prosecuted, but you're going to be held responsible two different ways. One is through the criminal courts and the normal proceeding, because a refusal is a refusal. We like to have the test, and it actually helps you as much as it helps us when we have a number with. I'm talking about alcohol. But if you refuse, now you're going to you're still most likely going to get charged, and you also have to go before the Department of Motor Vehicles and go to a refusal hearing. And all we have to do is show that we had a reason to stop you, a reason to feel you were impaired, and that we read you your refusal warning, and you're going to lose your license.
Right. Even
if you go to court and you beat the charge in court, on the criminal end, you've still lost your license administratively.
Dave, when you said marijuana in the blood is it's there for a fair amount of time or a short amount of time, about how much time are we talking? 24 hours? 2 hours?
It's a couple hours where it's going to show up in the blood.
A couple hours. Okay.
There's a difference between. So you're going to have psychophysical impairment and so we're going to see indicators through our drug recognition expert evaluation that we do, which takes about an hour. We're going to see indicators, and sometimes the police officer on the street is going to see things a little different than we did because maybe it's closer to the actual time of use when they tested you. And then as time goes on, just like with alcohol, you're metabolizing out of your system. There's no way for me to tell you how long it's going to be in your blood with marijuana, because it hasn't been studied to the point alcohol has, where there's a rule of thumb: you metabolize 0.015% BAC in 1 hour, and that's kind of a rule of thumb we go by. With marijuana, it depends on so many different factors, and the thing with marijuana today, the marijuana from when we were kids 30, 40 years ago, it's 10 times stronger now. The THC level, it's been worked on, and I'm making a finger quotes. They've improved it to the point where it's 30 times stronger than it was, that many years ago. So there's so many different varying strains and so many different varying strengths that we can't say that it's going to stay in your system, in your blood for only an hour or 4 hours or 6 hours or whatever. But the rule of thumb is if it's in your blood, it is most likely impairing you.
Whether we're talking about DWI or driving under the influence or whatever it is that the charge would be, we're still, the reality is, if you're impaired and you're driving, and God forbid you kill someone, or yourself, or someone in your car, somebody else, a pedestrian, who knows? That's really what we're talking about here, right? I mean, God forbid something like that happens. So just be smart and don't. If you're going to smoke pot, you shouldn't smoke pot and drive when you're impaired.
It's just like alcohol. I keep going back to that, but you could be the best driver in the world, and you could let's say you're lucky enough to drive home 50 times from the bar drunk, and the 51st time you're still on your way to making it home, and somebody runs a stop sign and you T-bone them, and we start an investigation, and you're impaired even though you didn't cause the accident. You're getting arrested.
That's a very good point. That accident might have happened with a drink or without, or pot or whatever, but the fact that it happened and now you're under the influence, that becomes right now. Now you're talking. If somebody dies, you're talking about a potential manslaughter case there.
Yep, and state police policy is anytime there's a fatal or a serious personal injury accident, we will deploy a DRE, and a DRE will look at everybody, regardless of whether you're at fault or not. We're going to take a look at everybody. I also want to point out, Bill, that the threshold for impairment versus intoxication is much, much, much less. So intoxication, that's when you talk about the .08 and the DWI. There's also DWAA, driving while ability impaired, and that applies to alcohol and drugs. And the definition of DWI is basically you got to be intoxicated and you're impaired to a substantial degree to prove intoxication. Impairment, the law says to any degree. So it's a much lower threshold. And the thing that I worry about the most, honestly, is if you remember back in the 10, 12 years ago when Utica, New York was the bath salt capital of the world, with K2 and Spice, and it seemed like every other day somebody was on the roof naked with a shotgun, and it was it was a big deal. But and we were stopping people, and we were arresting them for DWI drugs, and they were saying, "You can't do this to me because this is legal. I was able to buy this in the convenience store, so you can't arrest me for this." And that's not accurate. Just like alcohol,
just like prescription drugs, right?
Just like prescription drugs. Yep. And the combination of alcohol and prescription drugs, or alcohol and marijuana, just like Nagel said yesterday, a little bit of alcohol and a little bit of marijuana is a compounding issue. It's not like if you just smoke a little bit of marijuana and you try to drive, or you just drink a little bit of alcohol and you try to drive. If you mix those two, 1 and 1 isn't 2. 1 and 1 is 8 or 10 or 15.
Dave, do you know, and this will be my last question, do you know what happens when the governor signs this? Is there any part of this new legislation that goes into play immediately, or is everything delayed and staggered?
I don't know. I've been trying to get information. I'm sure we're going to get some bulletins that come out immediately, and I can let you know when we find something out.
It's crazy that we don't know.
We're trying to train every trooper in the state and A-RIDE before the end of the year, so we're completely covered as far as our eyes in the street.
Yep. And I've got one more for you real quick. Look, a lot of times, I guess people get high, right? And everyone always says, it's not like you want to go out and kill somebody, go rob a bank, like you want to sit on the couch and be lazy. Will you be writing more tickets for people not doing the speed limit? Because I'm telling you, I almost lose it.
Are you saying pot smokers will not do the speed limit?
Right. Yeah, like you're not going to see people speeding all over the place. You're going to see people doing 38 and 55.
Under the speed limit.
Right. So, you can get a ticket for that, right?
It's kind of a stereotype, and I don't want to go there, but one thing cannabis does is it creates a serious divided attention. So if you're able to keep your car straight on the roadway, you're probably not paying attention to speed limits, or vice versa. There's severe divided attention.
Yeah.
Well, I have one more actually. That's okay.
All right.
Will it be more difficult if, let's say, somebody didn't smoke it, but they ingested an edible or did some other form that doesn't produce an odor?
Yeah, now you're surfing the car. It's going down the road, and you're on the hood of the car.
That's a great question, and one of the analogies that I use when I teach this A-RIDE class is I tell the officers, go out on patrol every day like you have a cold. Have you ever arrested a drunk driver when you could not smell the odor of alcoholic beverage, but you saw other things that jumped out and kind of slapped you in the face, other indicators? And I said, if you look at people like you have a cold and you can't smell what may be impairing them, because like you guys said, there's only a few things that are going to be able to be picked up by odor: alcohol, marijuana, PCP. There's only a few things that we're going to get cued by the odor. Everything else are those subtle indicators that we're looking for. And so those are what we're trying to train our people to. Because like you said, edibles, certain vaporizers, there's just no odor. There's no odor. So we have to be looking for those other things. And again, I could spend an hour just talking about the indicators of cannabis and how the DRE program works, but there's tons and tons of things that we look for that they're involuntary, that you can't tell your eyes not to do certain things. They just do them.
Sergeant Dave Olney, thank you for the time. I appreciate it. We learned a lot this morning.
Thank you very much. You guys have a great day.
You do the same. Thanks so much.
Catch those springtime vibes all over Arizona. Break out of the winter blues by hitting the water at one of our lake and river parks. Take a hike among the wildflowers. Just make sure to stay on the trails and leave the flowers for the bees. Discover Arizona's best-kept secret and visit azstateparks.com/amazing to start your springtime adventure.